able to read far, far away, and then bringing it up close and being able to read. It exercises the lens tissues. Last exercise, and this works the interocular muscles. Now, we look at different angles. It's kind of funny, and we'll talk more about this in another show. When you watch people talk, you'll oftentimes notice they'll look at one direction or they'll look at another direction, or when they're trying to create something, they'll look down, or they're trying to grab their memory and they're going to look up to the right or left hand corner to try and pull something out of their brain. Your eyes and the directions in which you look and the muscles and the ability to see that actually affect your brain. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to run you through the quick exercises for working these interocular muscles. So if you can sit comfortably, I'd like you to look up. And now we're going to go at a much faster pace here, but you would hold them for about 15 seconds, looking up, and then you would look down, off to the right, off to the left. Now mind you, you're going to be holding these for about 15 seconds, up to the upper right-hand corner, northeast, and looking down, lower right-hand corner, looking up, left-hand corner, and looking down, left-hand corner. And then I'd like you to take your finger in front of you, and you're going to bring it into your nose, and I want you to follow your finger until it's at the tip of your nose, and you're going to look at your tip of your nose. And then relax it back to normal. The last exercise, I want you to think in terms of right in the middle of your brain, right in the middle, right between your eyes, and I want you to think about looking at that middle, right between your eyes. It's almost the lack of looking and the lack of focus that takes you out of that works your ability to kind of see beyond. Anyway, we'll have actually a whole entire show, maybe next time or the following time, on all these different ways that you can access different aspects of your brain just by looking at different directions and all of that. Anyway, I hope that helps. Once again, we're working on the diet, nutrition, supplementation, and these various exercises. And if you need a copy of these, we'll have them available in our stores, and we can. It's a summary of the exercises as you saw on the television today. Thank you very much for joining this portion of our show. Next, we're going to be moving on to the research portion of our show. Thank you. Research portion of our show, and with us today is Ralph Turchiano.
And thank you for that intro. Now, what appears to be almost like a chapter of an old spy movie, or potential terrorist movie, I should say, it comes down to what's called Legionella bacteria. Now, what happened in an article published in the Advanced Society of Microbiology this May 2014, they were trying to figure out why people were getting Legionnaires disease when it came to associating with motor vehicles or motor vehicle transportation. And what they did is they tried to figure out why it had such a high occurrence. Well, what they discovered was quite amazing. And this was an unusual way of Legionella bacteria to be spread from person to person. Now, normally, Legionella bacteria cannot be spread from person to person per se, but it can be spread through a certain medium. Now, Legionella bacteria, often you'll find in cooling ducts and things like that, air conditioning units, the whole lineup. But you would never guess where it is. In a high proportion, windshield wiper fluid. Now, if you think about it, what happens is windshield wiper fluid, it aerosolizes the Legionella bacteria. Now, what researchers from the Advanced Society of Microbiology put in publication was this. They discovered that Legionella bacteria, when in windshield wiper fluid, now remember, this could be almost any cleaning fluid, will actually grow and become stronger over at least a 14-month period of time. And every time you go to hit that window cleaning and you aerosolize that windshield wiper fluid, you actually cause the Legionella bacteria to become aerosolized and therefore spread. Hence, that was the connection that epidemiologists found when they looked at why people were getting so sick with Legionella bacteria in regards to motor vehicles. Now, what they did is to take it one step further. They actually looked at school buses in a school district in Arizona. And guess what percentage of those school buses' windshield wiper fluid was actually infected with Legionella bacteria? 5%, 10%, 20%? Of the school buses tested, 75% of them were infected with Legionella bacteria. So, Legionella bacteria does not only just cause Legionnaires or pneumonia in people which are susceptible, it also causes something called Pontiac fever, which is like a mild case of the flu. And since it cannot be spread from person to person via contact and things like that, it does spread very well in these aerosolized forms of wiper fluid. So if you have a person susceptible to this, it may be one thing that you may want to stay away from because, again, researchers are discovering a lot of these viruses and bacteria are spreading in ways that we never comprehended before, and this is one of them. Next, look at another nail in the coffin of benzodiazepine, if I pronounce that right, in what's called regards to sleeping pills and cardiovascular disease. Primarily, when someone has heart failure or heart disease and they go to the hospital, what often occurs when they get treated for this is they have a hard time sleeping. So often what will happen is hospitals, looking at the best interest of the patient, will actually prescribe these benzodiazepine hypnotics or sleeping pills to help their patients get better sleep. Well, at the Heart Failure Congress, yes, there is a Heart Failure Congress in 2014 that met in Athens, Greece. This is what they discovered. They found out when you give these benzodiazepine hypnotics to heart failure patients upon leaving the hospital, your chance of having heart failure or dying within a 180-day period of time, or be readmitted to the hospital with heart failure, I should say, increases not 200%, not 300%, not 400%, or should I say six-fold or seven-fold. It actually increases 8-fold. Now, an interesting thing, this is how they discovered it. They looked at 47 patients and that had heart failure, per se. And they looked at it, and they released them from the hospital. Out of the 47 that were released from the hospital, 15 of those survived quite well after 180 days. Then they wanted to see the difference. Oh, by the way, this was published in the, again, Heart Failure Association of the European Society of Cardiology this May 2014. They found out the only difference between the 15 that made it home and stayed home healthy, so to say, over a 6-month period of time, and those that had to be readmitted from heart failure or died, was that the 15 who made it did not have benzodiazepine hypnotics. All other 32 who did not make it had these form of sleeping pills, the benzodiazepine hypnotics itself. So it's something really interesting to look at. And to quote the study, they said, our study clearly shows that sleeping pills dramatically increase the risk of cardiovascular events in patients with this type of heart failure. The finding is consistent with what they call univariate and multivariate analysis. Given that many heart failure patients have difficulty sleeping, this is an issue that needs further investigation and larger studies. If you want to play it safe, find a different medication or a different way of sleeping. Otherwise, if you know anybody that's in the same position, make them aware of this risk. Or at least if the medical doctor or a person treating this patient may want to find a different tool in helping their patients get better sleep and avoid benzodiazepine hypnotics. Again, published at Heart Failure Association of the European Society of Cardiology, May 2014. Again, the meeting in Athens, Greece. And another powerful effect of pine bark. comes down to regards to pine bark and melanoma, skin cancer. What they found out is that most drugs that are being prescribed, or chemo drugs prescribed for skin cancer melanoma itself, only tend to affect basically one protein or one protein pathway, whether it be PI3K, MAPK, or STAT3, just to give you name a few right off the top of my head. So what ends up happening is one chemo drug may only address one of those. So then the cancer itself, the melanoma, just finds a different pathway. Well, what they found interesting in regards to pine bark, and they tested over 450, I may have got that wrong, maybe 480 natural compounds, and they found the chemical in pine bark called leelamine, Leelamine, leelamine if I'm pronouncing it properly. What they found out with leelamine, it one-upped, actually more than one-upped, at least 3 or 4 or 5-upped the current chemo drugs for melanoma. Now remember, these pathways, whether it be STAT3, MAPK, or PI3K, are responsible for about 70% of the melanomas that are out there. Leelamine addresses all of them. And how it addresses it is quite interesting. When you have a cancer cell, you have what's called, it requires these cholesterol-type transport mechanisms. And what the leelamine from pine bark does in regards to melanoma, in these cases, it shuts down the entire highway system for that cancer cell, meaning that cancer cell cannot communicate or get nutrients to it. Henceforth, in their words, the end result is the death of the cancer cell itself. It shuts down the active survival communication. So, this little substance from pine bark, an incredibly powerful tool in regards to at least close to 3/4 of the melanomas that are out there. Now, this is something if someone's basically having an issue with and doesn't interfere with this current medication that they're currently taking, even though the medication they can't take is, according to them, sucks because the cancer is eventually going to find a way around it anyways. Why not talk to that doctor about adding a little bit of leelamine? Again, this study was published in the Molecular Cancer Therapeutics this May 2014. They also said this, and I want to read verbatim. Leelamine works by shutting down cholesterol transport and its movement around by the cancer cell. By shutting down the cholesterol transport and movement, this exceptionally active survival communication that cancer cells require is shut down. The end result, to repeat myself, is the death of the cancer cells. Since normal cells are not addicted to the same, I almost forgot that point. Your normal cells don't use the same pathways as these cancer cells do. So, to continue on, it goes, since normal cells are not addicted to the same high levels of activity in these pathways, the drugs have a negligible effect on them. They also said, too, lowering your cholesterol doesn't make a difference. So, because statins and Lipitor don't affect the same type of cholesterol that's utilized in regards to cancer cells. They stress that point. Leelamine, Leelamine, may be a powerful tool in regards to melanoma. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ralph. Once again, we're on Comcast, and also we'll be showing on youtube.com/VH film. Health Research report.me also as well if you'd like some of the information Ralph presents. Thank you once again for joining our show. We appreciate it.